Hey friend, welcome to Self-Transformed, a podcast redefining self-care through simple fitness, nutrition, and mindset habits. I'm your host, Emily Nichols, certified personal trainer, Whole30 coach, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. Hey, I know the struggle is real when it comes to taking care of you. I too am a busy working mom who felt physically and emotionally drained until I took action on my own transformation journey. I finally found the solutions to feeling confident and living a healthy lifestyle that doesn't feel hard, and now I'm on a mission to equip you with sustainable tools to help transform your life from the inside out, guilt-free. Together, we will simplify your health and fitness into daily habits that don't feel like another thing on your long to-do list, but daily actions that light you up instead. So if you're ready to redefine self-care and step into your own self-transformation, then let's do this. You're listening to episode 111 of Self-Transformed. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. Today is a very exciting day because Self-Transform You Live launches today for the last time for 2021. We won't be offering this again until the new year. And you know what? I'm so excited for this journey for these ladies to go on and watch how they have this inside out transformation that will stick. That's the hard part, right? You can always start a new program. There's always like the anxiousness and excitement of starting something new. But I think a lot of that comes from, will I actually see this through and finish it? So yes, they will see it through because this is not just about 6 weeks and you're done. This is about a lifestyle shift when it comes to your fitness, your nutrition, your mindset, all topped off with habit hacking strategies. So gang, it's not too late to join. If you'd like to join in over the next couple of days, we have a live coaching call on day 1, but you can always catch the replay. You can go to selftransformu.com/live and get your spot. If you've been thinking about doing it, if you've been kind of on the fence, then here's your sign to do it. Because friend, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Let's get into today's episode. So with the fall launch of STU Live, I thought it would be really important to talk about goal setting. You know, I think a lot of times we just think of goal setting at the beginning of the year, like in January. And if you're anything like me, I have sat down and done like a big brain dump and just outlined all of my goals for the year, tried to outline when I needed to achieve them by, kind of taking a big picture look. Got my new planner, got like a really cute one, and I use my Google Calendar. And then by like February or March, all those goals are like gone, or I just felt too overwhelmed by how excited I was about my goals, and I wrote down too many that weren't really achievable. So today we are going to talk about how you can actually use some tangible methods to meet your personal and professional goals. I think it's super important to set goals for yourself and to use some of these tactics that we're going to share today to actually help you reach them. Because it's one thing to have them in your head, but to get them out of your head, to visually see them, to write them down is another thing. You know, we talk about SMART goals. We've all heard that acronym, right? SMART. So your goals need to be specific, measurable. I've also seen meaningful for M, which I think is really cool, achievable, realistic, and timely. So we all know that. So it's great to keep that in the forefront of your mind when creating your goals. But are you creating your goals because you think like what you're creating is what others expect you to set as your goals, right? You see other people posting about them. You're like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do this. But your goals are personal to you, whether they be about your family, your personal life, or professional. So it needs to be about you. So SMART goals are great, but you need to take it a step further and think about what is it for specifically for you. And also, did you know you're 42 times more likely to reach a goal if you write it down Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like I said, sometimes you just need to get it out of your head. We've talked on the show before about the power of writing and how it actually leads to actual tangible things happening in your life. So I want to keep you to keep that in the forefront of your mind today as we're listening to today's episode as well. So today I have my friend Kate House on the show. She is the host of the Live by Design podcast. She's a mama to 2 little toddlers. She's a wife to her college sweetheart, and she lives in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And when she's not busy chasing the boys around, hashtag boy mom, I know that how that is, she's hosting her show, meeting with one-on-one health and coach clients, and she's creating courses to help you live a healthier, more intentional, and joy-filled life. And gang, it feels good to reach your goals, right? It feels super, super great to check that off your list to say you met those goals. But how to actually get there, Kate is going to outline the path, the map you need to take in order to help reach your goals, setting those SMART goals, writing them down because you're 42% more likely to reach them, and taking these tips that she gives you today to make it happen. So get your pen and paper handy. Let's start crushing some goals. All right, gang, welcome back to Self Transformed. I'm so happy you're here because this conversation is an important one. Today, we're talking about goal setting with Kate House from the Live by Design podcast. Kate, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Emily. I am so thrilled to be here with you today.
Me too. All right, Kate. Well, let's get this conversation going. As you know, the first question I ask every guest is, what does the phrase self-transformed mean to you?
Oh man, I've been thinking so much about this question ever since you and I first connected because I've heard you ask it of all of your guests. And gosh, it's such a good and important question. So for me, self-transformed means not being afraid to come up to the edge of your comfort zone and then even push past it. Anytime in my life when I've gone through a transformation, when I've made a change of significance, something that I really needed to break through or overcome, whether it's changing jobs or changing my mindset or, rethinking how I approach finance, any number of things, my health included, it's always been when I've had to come up to the edge of my comfort zone and even cross it. And I really do think that the more times you get yourself out of your comfort zone by educating yourself, by listening to podcasts, by reading books, by talking to people who know more than you, it helps you grow. And then essentially, you guys can't see us right now, but I'm pretending like I'm pushing my comfort zone out away from me. And it's like your comfort zone gets farther and farther away from you each time you flex that confidence muscle.
I love that, getting outside of your comfort zone. I coach at Orange Theory, and I always saying hey, you can do hard things, push outside of your comfort zone. That is like the growth zone, because it's when you realize, hey, if I can do this hard thing, if I've overcome this, I can do other hard things too. You build that mental strength more so than that physical strength, right?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of half marathons. I think I'm up to 13 now. And it's really,
dang, for me, girl, you are dedicated.
There's so much fun for me, the training, and it's long enough that I have to train for it. I have to show up for myself and commit to it, but it's not so long that it takes over my whole life. I ran one marathon and I don't know if I'll ever do that again, but when I train, I always tell myself my mantra is, I get to do this. I can do hard things. So you get that piece of gratitude, oh, I get to do this. That's so cool. But just like you said, when you're coaching, I can do hard things. And the more you can prove to yourself that you can do hard things, the more you're oh, well, maybe I could try this thing. And maybe I could try this other thing. And a few years ago, that thing might have felt like a mountain, but now I'm building that confidence and building that strength. All of a sudden you're yeah, this seems like a good idea. I think I could give this a try and probably rock it.
I love that so much. And I love that you ran a marathon. I know what goes into, my husband's a marathon runner, and just the amount of training, after that, you're I can freaking do anything. So
yeah, I was okay, maybe I'm ready to start a family and think about childbirth.
You can handle it.
Yeah, I can
You can handle it. Yeah. I always joke, I joined a running group here in town just to meet other like-minded women. I don't even like running. I just did it because I was okay, these ladies probably have some of the same interests as me. And, I've done quite a few half marathons as well. And once I ran under 2 hours, I was I don't have to run anymore. But yeah,
Love
but
it.
it's like you said, it's comfort, pushing outside your comfort zone. We're always in an evolution, and this can apply to so many areas of your life. So let's talk about like your own transformation story. Kate, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and kind of your life experiences that have turned you into who you are today and what you do today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Emily. I'd love to. So for me, well, right now I am a mom of two little boys. I have a 3-year-old named Dexter and a 2-year-old named Conrad, and they are 18 months apart and they are so much fun and they keep me on my toes at all times. I'm married to my college sweetheart, and just a year ago, we moved back to what we consider to be our hometown. We met in college, and so we moved to our college town to raise our boys here in central Pennsylvania. So we're really glad to be here. And yeah, when I'm not chasing the kids around, I'm hosting the Live by Design podcast. I'm coaching one-on-one health coaching clients, and I'm currently building my first course as well. So it's an exciting season, and it's kind of fun. I love this question. It's kind of fun to think back to like what led me to be here right now, because the last time I lived here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, I was graduating from college with a major in fine arts, and I had studied abroad as a student, and I loved it. And I went to work in the Midwest for the school that I studied abroad with, but in their US office. And I learned so much in my time there. I also learned like what I didn't want going forward. And I found myself one day at 25 having what would probably be considered like a nervous breakdown. I was having these nightly stress-induced nightmares where I would wake up thinking my email had crashed and how could I reach my students? And it was terrible. And because I was so stressed, I wasn't taking good care of my body. I wasn't taking good care of my mental health. And I remember I have this very vivid memory one day of just crying on my couch, and my husband was sitting next to me, and he told me, I just feel so helpless. Like, I wish I could help you, but I can't. And I had this like light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, like I can change this. And by not changing this, I'm choosing this. And I don't want to choose this anymore. And that's really what prompted me to leave my 9-to-5 career. And I had found a lot of solace in running. And then because of my tight hamstrings, I found yoga. And then that's how I became a yoga teacher. I just fell in love with the community and the people. And it wasn't even about the physical movements. It was about the people and that feeling of being together in a space and just moving and being together. And so being a yoga teacher led me to wanting to work with my students on a more individual basis, which is how I became a health coach. And then through coaching, I wanted to reach a greater number of people. And so that led to the podcast, which I started during the pandemic because it was one of those, well, I'm home and my husband's also home and he keep an eye out like on the kids and I can just do this thing. And so, yeah, that's how I got here.
I love that so much. I love how, I think I just mentioned this on another recent episode, but just how our own evolution, a lot of times when we go through our own transformation, then we want to be able to help others once, like you feel like you've kind of figured it out. I don't think like we've all completely figured it out, but you found something that has worked for you and you're like, gosh, if I could help other people feel this way, what a gift.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool to think about being able to reach back to somebody who's the version of myself 2 steps ago. It doesn't even have to be like 10 years ago. It could just be me 2 years ago that was still trying to figure things out. And yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing I've learned about life is that I'm always learning and I'm always growing. And because of that, probably always changing. And it's really fun to be able to take what has worked well for me or what hasn't worked well to hopefully warn people against. I have a sister who just graduated from college and I sat her down and was like, listen, sweetheart, do not lose yourself in your career.
Yeah.
Because that's a little bit of what I did. And so, yeah, I love that you and I have that in common in terms of just wanting to help others be vibrant.
Yeah. How'd you come up with your podcast name? So Live by Design. I love that.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny. I have done so much research trying to figure out this quote. I once heard this quote, live by design, not default. And I've heard it attributed to Amelia Earhart, but I can't confirm that. So I actually don't know where it came from, but I actually have rack right next to me. I wish I could turn my computer so you could see it, but I'm so old school. I have a desktop computer, but it holds all my race medals and it actually says Live by Design. And I had that made from an Etsy artist probably like 8 years ago. And so I've had this in the back of my mind for so long. And when I sat down to, so when I sat down to start the podcast, I was just like, oh, I know exactly what this should be called. So yeah, that's where it came from. It was one of those things that just kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And then one day it just came back up to the surface when it was time.
Hey gang, cutting in real quick to tell you about my favorite meal delivery service, Cooked. They are a Chicago-based meal delivery service, and let me tell you, my family is obsessed. So Cooked offers chef-crafted meals that are cooked simply with only the purest ingredients, and they have 3 different meal types. So they have signature whole food meals, plant-based vegetarian meals, and even better, Whole30 approved meals. They're an official Whole30 approved meal delivery service. And my husband's last round of his Whole30, this was a game changer. It made his Whole30 even easier, and me too, so I wasn't cooking on the meals, and the meals were delicious. We're still ordering them every week within our food freedom. So head over to eatcooked.us and you can use the code EmilyNichols15 to receive 15% off your first order, and then Emily Nichols 5 for every order after that to receive 5% off your meals. So go check out eatcooked.us and let me know your favorite cooked meal that you receive. You're gonna love it. I love it. I love it so much. Oh, that gave me chills. All right, girl. Well, let's talk about today is focused on goal setting. And when you're living a life by your own design, a lot of times you have to set goals for yourself. And we were just talking before we hit record about, I know I've personally done this. I'm like, new year, I've set all these new goals for myself. I got a new planner. I've made a vision board. I've done this, I've done that. And one weekend I've stopped writing in the planner. So why is it so important for us to set goals? And keep in mind, Kate, there are a lot of working moms listening to this show as well. So I think they can relate on a couple different levels.
Totally. I think oftentimes as women and as moms, and especially working moms or anyone who just has a lot on their plate, it can be so easy to lose yourself in the day to day. And they say how you spend your day is how you spend your life, right? And so if you spend every day just treading water, just keeping your head above water and never making any progress, it's so demoralizing. It feels like you're just stuck. And for me, living by design and not by default is all about being intentional with my days. And absolutely. I have days where I just, like both my kids, I was telling Emily, we had to reschedule once because my kids caught the flu. And so those are days when you're like, okay, we are just going to survive this day. And maybe I can make progress in one small area and I just make one small step forward that day. But ultimately, when I think back over my days, I want to make incremental changes and incremental steps towards achieving my goals each day. And when we think about, in January, when we set these resolutions and we get the planner and we have these grand aspirations, sometimes they're so big and we don't break them down into tangible steps, into action items. And because they feel so big, you can kind of get analysis paralysis, or you can just be scared just to start. I mean, even in starting my podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to create a cover and a title and a description, and then I have to record and figure out how to edit. There's so many things, right? But I just bought a course and learned how to do all those things. And I just did it one thing at a time. And so I think that's the most important thing about goals is the first step is you have to dream really big because you have to be excited about it, right? If you're working towards a goal that doesn't put a little pep in your step, it's not going to happen. And then once you do that, you have to start breaking it down into more tangible items. And I know a lot of what your work is too, in terms of habits and mindset, is just weaving it into your day so that you're no longer treading water, but you're actually doggy paddling slowly in the direction of your dream so that you're actually swimming instead of just treading that water.
I love that. Well, and it feels good to be able to reach your goals, regardless if they're little or big. Having those tiny wins gives you that confidence to keep swimming forward instead of just treading in place, right?
Absolutely. I think, well, there's so much science behind what activates in your brain when you achieve a goal, right? When you do something. And for me, a lot of times, like take running, for example, a lot of times when you think about running, you probably bring to mind like the person crossing the finish line and getting the race medal. Like, congratulations, you finished. Like, here's your medal, like go have your post-race drink. It's going to be great. But for me, the value is in showing up for myself every single day and going for that training run or doing that yoga class to stretch my muscles or whatever the case might be. And those for me are small wins every single day. That is a goal that I'm achieving. That's a step towards, the bigger goal. And being able to have that sense of pride in yourself, I think a lot of times we lose a little bit of that, especially when we have demands on our time for work. We have demands on our time with our family. There's, the emotional load that you carry as a parent, and all of that can be easy to start to lose yourself in all of those other things. And if there's anything I've learned, it's that you have to pour into yourself first before you can pour into others. And the best way that I can show up for my family is by taking care of myself. It's by working towards these goals, because then I really do show up as my best self for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made a really good point. I know when I've set goals for the new year, like I'll start writing them down and the paper keeps getting longer and longer and longer. And then it just, like you said, it's analysis paralysis. You're too overwhelmed. You're like, how in the world can I do this? Kind of like when we talk about habit coaching, especially here on Self Transformed, because if you try to do it all at once, you're not going to do any of it. And then you feel like you have failed, and then you just throw your hands up and you don't meet your goals. You aren't creating these new habits. And it feels so much better to have the small wins. We just need to allow ourselves to get to those smaller wins and have our eye on the prize for later and have that patience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Kate, what are some easy tools that a woman listening to the show today could start implementing to reach her goals? So we've talked about the importance of reaching goals, but how do we do it?
Yeah, I love this question, Emily. Okay, so I have 3 different things that I would recommend, and I would do them in order. So the first thing I would recommend is identifying your why. And when I talk about your why, I'm talking about the reason behind your goal. So it doesn't matter necessarily what the goal itself is. I want to know why you're reaching for it, because inevitably life will happen. Your kids get the flu, or you get, something happens in your life and it sets you back. And if you aren't connected with a deeper why, with the reason behind your taking these strides or pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, which is never easy, you have to know why you're doing it. Because if it's not easy and you come up against a hurdle, it's really easy to quit. And so, right? It's so easy. And so for me, my why has always been let's use running again as an example. I run not only for my physical health, but for my mental health and my emotional health. I know that I am a brighter and a better and more patient version of myself when I sweat from a place of joy pretty much every single day. And the days that I don't sweat and I'm working out, I'm meditating or doing something else that pours into myself. And so that's my why behind my physical movement. My why for my podcast and my growing my business is I want my kids to grow up seeing me do things that are hard, seeing me show up again and again and again in service of others, for love of others. And that helps me on the days when, I have to move a podcast interview because my kids are sick and you just feel so frustrated, right? I think it can be easy as a parent to just kind of feel like, oh, this can be so hard. And it helps you just refocus and get everything back in perspective. So the why would be my first suggestion. My second suggestion is I love breaking goals down into 10, 5, and 1 year goals. So I do an exercise with all my coaching clients where we sit down and I take them through like a visualization exercise where they think about what their best, most beautiful life would look like 10 years from now. And we talk about it. We talk about the way it feels. We talk about what it looks like, who they're with, all like in very minute detail. And then we think about, okay, well then what needs to happen between now and then in order to make that your reality? And that can seem really daunting, right? 10 years from now, you can do so much in 10 years. But if you feel daunted by it, you're never going to start. So that's why we break it down to 5-year goals, and then we break it down again to 1-year goals. And then my third suggestion is just be consistent. Greg McGowan, who I'm just a big fan of his work, his book Essentialism has just totally transformed the way I think about my day and what I choose to fill with it. And he always says consistency compounds. And so that's what I have to remind myself of on the days when I don't want to show up for myself or I don't want to work on building my business. I remind myself of my why. I remind myself of my goals. And then I just tell myself, just take one step today. If today is an off day and you just show up by serving one person, then we're going to count it as a win.
I love that so much. Obviously, the why is so important, but we lose focus of that.
Totally.
We lose focus in that and the everyday of trying to reach those goals. And I love the 10, 5, 1. Sometimes we get so caught up in the now or like what's happening in the next 6 months or year. And I like the visualization. How does it feel? Where are you at? You know, that takes it to a whole other level. And I truly believe in my whole heart, when you really visualize things like that and see yourself there, you'll find a way to get there. You just can't loosey-goosey be like, oh, well, I really wish, I could, do this and go live on a lake or whatever. But you have to obviously work for it. But to feel like, okay, what does that look like? Okay, that makes you more motivated to show up every day for those goals, right?
Totally. I've known people where they're constantly saying in quotes, I want to this. I want to do this. I want to be this. I want to do this, but they never take any action. And so it's the same monologue time and time again. But once you get your why and you have your goals, you can start making progress to actually going from I want to I am.
Ooh, I want to I am. Yes, that is powerful. Would you suggest someone writing this down or like you said, visualizing it? What's a really good way to kind of take that to the next level?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. Well, I know I said that I was a fine arts major in school. So the art nerd in me loves a good vision board. I totally geek out over them and love nothing more than going to my local bookseller and buying all the beautiful magazines and printing off photos online. But I'm a huge advocate for vision boards. And my biggest suggestion for a vision board is make it your 1-year goals. So don't put on, a Lamborghini. If that's not in your vision, don't put that, you see these vision boards, you Google vision boards and just see what comes up. And it's castles in Spain. I mean, that's great. Maybe that's in your 1 year, but it's not in mine. And so I always say, make it 1 year, make it aspirational, but attainable. So put some goals that make you a little scared, that maybe make your hands a little you're like, oh goodness, am I going to be able to do this? That make you excited and that you're really going to have to commit yourself towards working towards. And then the other thing with your vision board is you have to put yourself on it. There's so many times somebody holds up a vision board and there's models who've been airbrushed and photoshopped and this is your life. Don't visualize this person's life. Put yourself on your vision board. And if you're not happy where you are right now, maybe you're looking to grow. Put a photo of yourself from a time when you were super happy and content and joy-filled, or put people on it who bring you joy. I always have my family on it. Heck, my dog even makes it onto my vision board. Millie has been by my side for 7 or 8 years now. And I just think it's so important that your vision board be reflective of you and your 1-year goals, and then just put it somewhere where you see it every day. I have all of my old vision boards. I'm gesturing towards our storage area right now. And I have them all and I keep them because I love going back and looking at them and saying wow, I made all these things happen. And not to say that life can't happen and, the changes of life, things ebb and flow. And so maybe you go a different direction than you had originally envisioned 5 years ago, but maybe you end up somewhere even cooler because you've been living with intention and living with focus.
I love that. I have to go look back at my vision board and see if I have a picture of me on it now.
Yeah. Right.
I think I have a picture of my family and I'm in the picture.
There you go.
I have to look.
It's funny. I think as women, maybe more so than men, I don't know, but my inclination is that oftentimes we'll avoid photos of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Printing photos of ourselves, right? Even though like we live in this Instagram world where we're constantly putting up photos of ourselves, for some reason, when we think about putting it up on a vision board and then hanging that on our wall, it feels kind of scary, but it's a cool way to take ownership of your story.
Yeah. I made a vision board for the new year in Canva, and I never printed it out. I haven't looked at it in a couple months. I need to print that out and like have it here in my office. That way I'm like constantly looking at it and reminded about that.
I love that. I heard someone who makes theirs on Canva and then they turn it into their desktop background. So that way each day they see it. I thought that was a cool idea.
Or you could even put it like on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah,
totally. Especially if the crafty thing isn't your vibe, because it totally isn't everybody's, then Canva is such a great way to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's electronic. It's literally, you can bring it anywhere with you.
Right. I need to put that as my background on my laptop. That's what I need to do. Okay. I'm going to do that as soon as we're done with this interview.
I love it.
You know what, Kate, you brought up a really good point that I wanted to bring up. So what if you're trying to reach for these 1-year goals or whatever, and you don't reach them?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone who hasn't been able to reach a goal that they were looking to reach? And within, like, whether it be a 1-year, 5-year goal, whatnot, what would you say to someone who's like, man, I tried to reach this goal, but I failed?
Yeah.
In quotes, failed.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm a huge fan of the idea of failing forward. So anytime you quote unquote fail to achieve something, first, let's evaluate, what did you learn along the way? Did you try something new and maybe you didn't achieve that goal, but you gained some confidence, you gained a little bit of swag, right? Maybe you walk with a little bit more like oomph in your step, right? You're channeling your inner Beyonce. Like, let's see what good thing came from this failure. Another thing I would ask is this goal that you put down for yourself actually for you, or do you think it's just what's expected of you? Because oftentimes if it's a goal that's really not in alignment with your purpose or with your passion, those are the ones that tend to get pushed to the side or not pursued. Or, for example, one time I had put on my vision board this accreditation I was going for in my past career. And I just kept not working towards it. And I finally had to sit down with myself and be like, okay, Kate, listen, why aren't you putting in the time and the effort towards doing this thing you said you wanted? And I finally realized, well, I don't think I actually want this. I think I just have this expectation that it's what others want me to do. And this isn't part of my story. This isn't part of my journey. And I had to reevaluate. And so sometimes those failures can be a good reevaluation. And then other times they can be a chance for showing yourself grace. I think so many times we can be so hard on ourselves, like our own worst critic. And I think learning to talk to yourself with kindness and with grace is a really important lesson. And then deciding, okay, well, it didn't happen this first time. Let's try it again. I know 10 different ways how not to do this. So now let's find 10 ways how to do this. And then just go back to the drawing board, ask for support, ask for accountability, work with a coach, take a class, do what the thing that you need, put people in your corner that can help you get there, right? Find the people who are going to be your cheerleaders and listen to them and speak to yourself kindly and just keep trying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, Kate. Cause if something doesn't happen for you, maybe it just wasn't for you. Maybe it wasn't the right time. Maybe you're still, God didn't put that in your life right now because it wasn't the right time for you. It would have been too overwhelming for you right now, or that wouldn't have worked out or whatnot. So, I love that so much. I love that so much. Well, this is so good. I feel like everyone listening today is scribbling down furiously a bunch of notes and setting new goals. You can still set goals for this year that just doesn't have to happen in January. It can happen anytime, and you can pivot and change those as the year is going along as well. If you figured out, like you said, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm doing something I thought society expected me to do. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Well, Kate, where can everyone connect with you? Obviously we can listen to the Live by Design podcast, but where else can we come connect with you?
Oh, thank you, Emily. You're so kind. Yes. Live by Design podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those good places. I'm also really active on Instagram over at Live by Design podcast. That's actually where Emily and I first connected. So it's just a really awesome way. I love Instagram for connecting with people one-on-one. There's nothing I love more than cheering other people on and commenting on photos and starting discussions in my DMs and just being in community, especially in a time when that's a little bit harder to do. And so I love Instagram. I think it's a really awesome place just to be there for each other, to be one another's hype girl. And then over on my website, you can find all of my podcast episodes, all of my blog posts. And I also have a free vision board guide I would love to offer to your listeners. So if you hop over to misskatehouse.com/vision board, that's where you can find that.
I love that. I'm going to go ahead there now too and take a peek. After I put my Canva vision board as my background.
I love it. That's such a good action item.
I have to do it. I have to do it. So Kate, thank you so much for this conversation. And friends, go get after those goals. Kate, lovely speaking with you.
You too, Emily. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kate, for this conversation. Oh my gosh, goal getters, let's go chase after these goals. I hope you feel inspired as I do. And I did download my vision board that I made at the beginning of the year onto my desktop on my computer. And there was a few things on there that I've actually reached and I didn't even realize it because I hadn't had my vision board in my vision. So this is super, super important to do. Let's talk about my 3 biggest takeaways from this conversation with Kate House of the Live by Design podcast. So number 1, it's about the process, not just the finish line. Okay. I've talked about the compound effect before. That's a book by Darren Hardy. It's a really great book to put in perspective. These small little wins every day lead up to big, massive transformation. That's kind of the keystone habits that we have within STU, the course and the live group coaching version that we're launching today as well. But these small wins every day compound into actually reaching your goal. It's the everyday actions you're taking. And it's the process. You're learning about yourself maybe along that time. And like we talked about, maybe you don't reach that goal because maybe that's not for you, or you evaluated and thought, I'm doing something because I thought society needed me to do this. So it's all about that process. And it's really important to have that why in the forefront of your mind. Okay. Having that why as far as why you're wanting to reach these goals is going to help you cross that finish line and enjoy the process over time, because sometimes the process is hard. It's a little bumpy. For sure. But if you have that why in the front of your mind, the process will be just a little bit easier. And those small little wins, like I said, add up to some massive transformation in reaching those goals. Number 2, I loved how she broke down having 10, 5, and 1 year goals. I love this because I kind of loosey-goosey think about like my family's future in the next 5 to 10 years, but I'm usually just like on a 1 year goal setting process and breaking it down, like working backwards from there to figure out how to reach those goals. But I love the 5 and 10 year version of that as well, and visualizing what that looks like to you. Like, what does it feel like? How does that feel for your family? How does that feel like for you? What does your day look like? Not just having, again, a loosey-goosey goal in mind, but those 10, 5-year, and 1 year goals, maybe sit down and journal about it and not just say, I want to have like a lake house. Like, I want to live on a lake house and it's going to feel amazing. I'm going to wake up every day and drink my coffee by the lake and hear and watch the sunrise or whatever. Visualize it. What's it feel like? And not just for you, but everyone around you that you love as well. That's really important, especially with your personal goals. Professional wise as well, I think thinking about what your lifestyle looks like because you are meeting your professional goals and those 5 and 10 year goal timelines is important too. Like I am, crushing at my work. I feel confident. I'm helping people and serving so many women doing this. And at the same time, I have a lifestyle where I am able to be there to get my kids off the bus. Okay, so write that down. Like we said, you're 42% more likely to be successful if you write it down. And lastly, I had to bring this up again, the vision board. Oh my gosh, write it down, journal those goals like we talked about, but y'all put that vision board where you can see it. This was a big aha moment and action item that I took right away after I hung up my call with Kate, and I hope you go and take action now. If you've created a vision board or if you haven't yet, it's not too late. Even though we're going into the last quarter of the year, you can still create a vision board for what you want for the end of the year into next year and those 5 and 10 year goals as well. I think it's really great to have that visualization there for you to see, for you just not to imagine it, for you to see it every day and be reminded of those goals that you want to go after. So what do you want and what are you going after? Okay. Along that journey, like I said, it's going to be bumpy. So it needs to be from a place of grace when things don't maybe turn out the way they're supposed to. But gang, setting these personal and professional goals and having these tactics behind it that Kate mentioned today will help you get closer and closer to those goals and leading with a more confident, fulfilled, joy-filled life. Because y'all, it feels good to reach your goals, right? Absolutely. So Kate, thanks so much for coming on the show for that freebie she mentioned, gang. Make sure to go check that out. I will include it in the show notes if y'all are wanting to build a vision board as well. I so appreciate you guys listening. Remember, Self Transform You live launches today. You can go to selftransformu.com/live if you want to get on that group coaching program for the next 6 weeks, or you can just purchase the course and do it on your own self-paced calendar, whatever works for you, at selftransformu.com. So gang, sending you all lots of love. Let's go crush some goals. Hey girl, real quick before you go, if you love today's show and know your girlfriends need to hear this message too, then grab a screenshot, post it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at EmilyNichols22, because the more mamas out there hearing this message, the more empowered we'll all feel to take care of ourselves so we can pour from a full cup. Or the number one way you can thank me for this podcast is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. That way, more mamas will find the show here too. Love you and appreciate you, girlfriends. See you next time.